我会先简单的介绍一下有关我们 AFI 的情况。那么之后呢，还有一个我们陆续在将来几天以及下个4月份的我们的一些重点的活动、重点的讲座。然后呢，之后呢，我们就会邀请这个今天大家都看到Maria， 然后 Jennifer 和 Kate 来给我们讲解这个有关儿童沟通的技巧，家长怎么在孩子的成长过程中，这个帮助孩子建立这个沟通技巧。尤其很多其实在帮助孩子建立这个沟通的技巧。那么之后呢，会有答疑时间。然后呢，那我们现在先开始。首先呢，我们AFI 呢是Alliance for Impact， 是我们原来原名叫华人咖啡俱乐部，是我们纽约联邦及纽约州政府批准的5年 C3 的非营利公益组织。我们的宗旨呢是宣传以华裔为主的亚裔群体对当地社会的贡献，然后增强亚裔群体对主流社会的影响力，并提高亚裔群体的整体地位。我们通过举办丰富多彩的线下主题活动和线上讲座，以及针对亚裔群体需求的各种职场沟通及领导力的培训项目。AFI 帮助北美华人拓宽视野和人脉，提高职业发展，寻找事业合作的机会。进一步也促进华人抱团取暖，携手共赢。然后大家如果经常看到我的时候，也会知道，就是我现在来负责思汇学院。那么我们思汇学院呢是 AFI 教育领域的非营利合作伙伴。思汇学院呢也是政府认证的非营利教育机构。我们致力于将最优质的财商、投资、沟通及领导力的课程带给这个华人的孩子，带给成人，然后我们也有针对成人的投资课程。然后呢，现在呢，我们也有夏令营在这个招生之中。然后同时，我们夏天的课也都开始引入，如果大家有需要，可以找我们的这个思汇的小助手在群里。那我们 AFI 的影响，我们在过去4年里面 ，AFI 建立了一个超过5万人的在线社群。然后我们一共有140个，可能现在都已经超过快要到200个这个不同的主题的微信群，然后都是针对当下热点话题举办的这个各种讨论讲座。那么思汇学院从2020年建立起来之后，我们已经为超过3000名成人及青少年提供了高质量的课程。同时呢 ，AFI 和思汇学院也都是在帮助纽约本地的这些非营利机构合作，帮助这个纽约本地的华人社群。那么我们同 UA3 Community First Food Penalty 合作，然后已经在连续2年为多达1万多名的社区弱势群体提供食物和个人防护设备。在过去的这2年之中，我们也举办了超过200场以上的线上公益讲座。同时呢，我们最近也开始了这个云健身的公益课程。那么1周在线课程的人数超过1500人，平均每一场有220人在线。同时呢 ，AFI 还有一个亲子学院 Parenting Center。那么我们这个 Parenting Center 里，其实在包括自闭症互助组、ADHD 互助组、幼儿故事活动，然后单亲爸妈养娃经验分享等等，还有包括家长的这些经验分享，都会在我们亲子学院这边都是在亲子学院来负责的。那么我们就现在呢，我来介绍一下我们4月份的这个重磅的活动。4月份因为是自闭症的这个自闭症觉醒月 Autism Month， 所以我们这次呢就是带来了一个整月份的这个讲座分享。大家可以关注 AFI 的公众号发的文章，上面呢会详细的列出每一天的每天什么时间是什么类型的讲座，什么主题的讲座。那么在4月2号本周六，我们也请到了这个 Grace Mo， 是纽约的国会议员，然后呢也是他发起的这个自闭症照顾者支持法案。那么我们请到了 Grace Mo， 然后来到我们的这次讲座中。然后同时呢，每周四从4月7号开始，每周四的晚上也会有家长再来分享这些和自闭症的孩子在这个成长过程中会遇到的一些问题，然后成长过程中需要注意的东西。那么也欢迎各位家长参加。然后同时呢，在4月8号本周五，我们找到了这个朱维摩教授，他是美国运动科学院院士。然后呢，由他来讲一讲，就是这个非常火的冬奥会非常火的谷爱凌。那么呢，说运动该怎么培养，运动这些项目该怎么培养。同时呢，4月 同时这是在4月9号，周五晚上，在4月9号周五晚上，我们也有和有思公益讲坛一起合作这个有思公益的讲座。那么同时呢，我们在这周日4月10号也会邀请到这个张博士，然后来为我们讲一讲周末就是对于工作压力如何应对，对于生活压力如何应对。那么相信大家其实在慢慢的逐渐疫情减缓之后，回到办公室呢，其实又要面对很多新鲜的事情。那怎么来处理这些压力，怎么来去消解这些压力？那么我们请到了张教授来给我们讲。So now we back to tonight. Tonight's the topic is enhance your child's communication skills. We invite Jennifer, Kate, and Maria to talk with us about this topic, and they are really experienced teacher with to communicate with, to teach the parents how to communicate with kids and how to enhance the kids' communication skills. So I will give the mic to them, and they will begin the seminar tonight. Yeah, you can share your screen.
Perfect. Thank you, Chris. Thank you so much for that warm welcome. We are so grateful to AFI and VisWise Academy for hosting us here tonight. We would love to know where you are joining us from. If you wouldn't mind putting in the chat what state you're joining us from, we'd love to see how we are all connected here on this Zoom call tonight. We are joining you from Illinois. My partners here, Marina, I'm going to have her.
Hi, everyone.
There's Marina. Oh, wow. Look, we have all the way from California to Virginia, Oregon, New York. I love it. New York. We are definitely coast to coast. North Carolina. Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much for taking time out of your evening to join us tonight. So like I said, I'm here with my partners, Kate Tahaney. She'll be manning our chat. If you have any questions, she'll be manning that and doing our Q&A at the end. And our other partner, Marina Perry, who will also be presenting tonight. Like I said, we are from Illinois, from the Chicago area, and our company is called Vibrance Communication and Consulting Innovations. Again, thank you to AFI for having us here tonight, and thank you for joining us. We're so excited to help you invest in your child's communication skills and their development. By being here, you're actively playing a role to build that communication foundation, which is key for their success throughout life. So tonight, we're going to give you a sneak peek of our 3 courses, our 3 parent seminars that we'll be offering through AFI and VisWise Academy, 3 Monday nights in April. Tonight, we're going to give you just a little sneak peek of each of those courses, in addition to helping you get to know us better and a little bit more about our company. We at Vibrance feel it is so important to teach parents about communication development from the get-go, from when your child is born, because this plays such a big critical role in their development with their relationships with their peers, their success in school, and of course, as you all know, their success later on in life with obtaining that prosperous career. We need to start with a strong communication foundation from the get-go, from the beginning. So today we wanted to share one of our favorite quotes with you. Communication is like riding a bicycle or typing. If you're willing to work at it, you can rapidly improve the quality of your life. Let's think about that. Rapidly improve the quality of every part of your life, right? That means your relationship with your peers, your relationship with your families, your coworkers, bosses, teachers. We know that how we communicate plays a huge part in how others perceive us. By the way we communicate, people perceive us as being strong or weak, competent or incompetent, warm or cold. We know that children do not just automatically develop communication. It is something that is learned. It is something that is modeled by their parents, by their caregivers, their teachers. it is modeled, we cue it for them, and it develops throughout the lifespan. So that's what we're here to do today, is just help you provide some tips and give you, like I said, that sneak peek of our upcoming courses, which will really delve deep into those areas. All right, so let's take a step back and talk a little bit more about how communication builds. So let's think about babies and children. What is the first way that a child communicates? I'm just going to have, if you want to put in the chat, I'll have Kate read some of the responses here.
Crying.
Exactly. Ding. You guys are great. Crying, right? So as a baby, as an infant, our first communication is crying. And children communicate during those first few months by crying to obtain basic physiological needs. So when they cry because they're hungry, their need gets met, we feed them. They cry because they're hurt or in pain, a parent holds them and comforts them. They are right away learning that cause and effect relationship of communication. As they get a little bit older, they become more interactive, right? We might play peekaboo with them or make a silly face, and the child laughs. And we do it again, and they laugh. They're learning that basis for conversation, that back and forth turn taking. As they get a little older, that builds to imitation. They might say a sound, da, and we say it back, Dada, and they say Dada. They're learning that imitation. That imitation grows then to words and phrases, and I ask a question, you give an answer, and back and forth. During those early child school years in preschool, even earlier and maybe in daycare, right? Or with peers or siblings, they learn to use socialization. They learn to use those social skills to ask a child for a toy that they have in their hand rather than grabbing it out. They learn to ask a child at the park to play with them. That's by modeling and cueing from the parent from the get-go. As they grow older, we know that their communication demands are more intense. They need to feel confident in their ability to communicate, to participate in a group presentation, to give their opinion on a group project, to raise their hand and give an answer in class, and to give a more formal presentation. And as they grow, right, we know that in the high school years and beyond, the communication is even more complex. We need to be confident to interview for colleges, to interview for that first summer job, to be on a debate team, to give an even more formal presentation. If we don't have that strong base, that strong communication base in teaching and helping our children to be confident so they're not afraid of speaking, they're not afraid of public speaking later in life, we need to start that from the beginning. We sometimes see some of that disconnect or some of those problems having in the early years. We might see children who are having difficulty communicating or not having those strong models have more frequent tantrums or grab, like I said, grab the toy out of the sibling's hand rather than asking. Having trouble making friends, not having the confidence to speak their opinion in class. And so we really need to build that positive communication foundation from the get-go. So like I said, tonight, we're going to be giving you a sneak peek of those 3 courses. As you can see on the slide here, the 3 courses will be held on Mondays in April and May. Our courses will be an hour and a half long with 30 minutes at the end for breakout with a speech language pathologist. And at that time, you can ask specific questions if you'd like about your children or development in general. Our 3 courses that we will be presenting, our first one will be helping your child master speech and language skills. In this seminar, we'll be providing information on speech and language milestones from birth through high school, and we'll be giving you tips and strategies on how to help your child get to that next level of development. We will have very functional, hands-on, easy to do activities you can do with your child at home. That course is just a lot of fun. You'll love it. Our second course is Achieving Success with Your Bilingual Child. As many of you know, bilingual language development is a little bit different than monolingual language development, of course, for the better. There are many benefits in the brain for bilingual children, and we will delve into that a little deeper. We'll also delve during that class a little more into public speaking. We really find that beneficial to work on specifically public speaking with the preteens, and that will be a lot in that second course. Our last course, Winning Communication Strategies to Foster Positive Behaviors in Your Children, is one I know all of us parents would love to have our lives a little bit easier. So what can we do to help foster our children talking about their feelings, having their needs met, their wants met, right, without having those tantruming or those unwanted behaviors? So that's a fun class too, lots of tangible communication strategies for you. So we hope you join us in those classes. Like I said, today, Kate's manning the chat. So if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please make sure to put it in the chat. We will make sure at the end to get to those. I know Kate is busy manning those as well. Like I said, we are, I don't know if I said, maybe I didn't. We are speech language pathologists, Marina, Kate, and I. And the job of a speech language pathologist is to assess and prevent and treat a variety of communication disorders. And as you can see here on the screen, we work in a variety of different settings. There we go. I know many people, when they think of a speech therapist or speech pathologist, they think of professionals that work with children who have difficulty pronouncing a certain sound. Maybe they come in and say one instead of run because they have difficulty producing their R sounds, or children who stutter, who have difficulties with fluency. And although we do work on that, we also work on a wide variety of areas in speech and language. We work with receptive language, help people understand what they hear, their ability to answer questions, follow directions. We work with those who are having trouble with their voice, who may have a hoarse voice, raspy voice. We work with adults and children who have difficulty with feeding and swallowing, and also those that have difficulty using language for social purposes, for social communication, and of course, much more. Kate and Marina and myself, we work for Vibrance Communication and Consulting Innovations, and we just wanted to tell you a little bit about the services that we offer. We offer four major services. Our first one is parent consultation. That is for parents who may have some concerns about their child's development and want a professional to meet with to discuss next steps, discuss services in their area, and just discuss developmental norms. So we do provide parent consultations. We know that parents are busy these days. We have many professional parents out there who their children may already be receiving services and they don't have the time to really delve into, hey, am I on the right plan with my treatment? Can someone look over this report for me and just give me another opinion? And we're there for that. We're also here for the busy parent who feels like they need an evaluation, an assessment in their area, and they're not sure where to look, what might be a good fit for them. We do provide assistance in finding providers in your area that would be a good match for you and your family. Our other two of our other services, I should say, have nothing to do with speech and language disorders. These are for typical children and typical adults, usually students and professionals. We do American English pronunciation training, our expertise with where the tongue and the lips should go in the mouth, plus our expertise in the International Phonetic Alphabet, help us to help those students and professionals who are using English as a second or third language, and they're using it for work or school and would like help producing certain sounds or increasing their clarity in that additional language that they're using. And then we also offer professional speaking coaching. This again is for students and professionals who want assistance with things such as giving a formal presentation, working on a Zoom call, negotiating, interviewing. We work with all those areas in speech, all those little areas that we talked about in speech to help people be as confident as they can in those speaking tasks, both professionally and in school. I know right now we're working with a politician who is working on increasing his communication effectiveness both on Zoom calls, TV interviews, and debates. So that's been a lot of fun. And then our fourth service is we work with college students and we do mentoring. So these are, we mentor students who are interested in the field of speech language pathology and want to learn more about it. We also work with current students who are either in undergraduate or graduate programs and are having difficulty with challenging coursework and would like a mentor with those courses. So enough about us. Let's move on and get started. And, you know, I should mention, we had our email there too. If you have any questions or any needs in those services, please feel free to email us. We will get back to you. Our email is info@vibrance.com, and we'll be showing it again in the presentation. So don't hesitate to reach out with any questions. Without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to my partner, Marina, who's going to be giving you that sneak peek of Seminar 1 that we'll be offering. It's called Let's Talk, Helping Your Child Master Speech and Language Skills.
All right, thank you so much, Jen. Let's get started. Let's dive right in. So I want to first start off with a little pop quiz. Just kidding, but not. As we move on to the next slide. There we go. All right, so a semi little pop quiz. So I want to start off by asking 2 questions. When should a baby say their first word, and how many words should a child have by 24 months? If you could go ahead and stick it in the chat, and Kate, if you don't mind reading out loud, and it's okay if you don't know, we're all here to learn this together, and just give it your best guess. Again, when should a baby say their first word, and then how many words should a child have at 24 months? All right, stick it in the chat. And then
any takers? First word at 3.3 or 4 months old, around 1 year old.
So whoever said 1 year old is correct. A baby should say their first word around their first birthday. And then by 24 months, we want a minimum, and I mean a minimum of 50 words, and we want to see them putting some 2 words together. All right. So why is knowing this very important? Well, first off, it'll help you identify any red flags, which is important. And then, even though I love the internet, there's so much incorrect information out there. I can't tell you the number of times we get parents coming to us showing us, well, according to this website, it's okay that my 3-year-old is not talking. Or according to this blogger, because my son's a boy, it's okay that he's not talking, when in actuality, there is a problem. So again, we need to decipher between what's correct and what's incorrect. And then also, if you know what's coming up, what skill sets are coming up for your child, you can better prep them transition into those next set of milestones so that they don't fall far behind. For example, we now know at 24 months that our children are supposed to say 50 words and starting to put 2 words together. So let's say I have a 22-month-old that is not quite yet doing that, and that's okay. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start working on it. So I know my kiddo can say the words cracker, they say please, me, and want, but they're not yet putting it together. So at 22 months, I'm going to start working on it. So I'm going to be cueing him to say more cracker, cracker please, want cracker, so that when he does turn 2, he is spot on. All right. So for today, we are just going to look at the 12-month-old. Please know in the full course, you're going to get information from birth all the way to high school. And we'll talk about milestones. We'll talk about how to work on them. We'll also discuss social skills, which is obviously very important, and then how to play with your child or how to interact with them, what toys to use. And then we'll gift you some free resources and materials for you to use. But for today, you're just going to get a little taste test. So let's take a look. Receptive language refers to your child's ability to understand what is being said to him or her. So what does this look like for a 12-month-old? Well, first off, we want them understanding some single-step commands. We want them to be pointing or identifying at least 2 action words. And then we want them identifying at least 3 body parts on themselves or on others. So let's take a look at that 1-step command. You might think that, well, I just, ask my child to do something and they'll do it, right? But that's not always the case with a 12-month-old. Our 12-month-olds are just discovering their personality. So they're going to be doing what they want to do most of the time. So if we move on to the next slide. There we go. So, so how do we work on this? Well, we can play some games with our child. So for example, like the how big is baby game. So how big is Johnny? So big. And you're going to use your hands, you're going to use your body, you're going to use your face and your voice. Be very animated. Otherwise, they're not going to respond to you. They're going to completely ignore you. So be visual. Use your hands, use your gestures, use your points, pointing finger to help them follow that direction. All right. You can, of course, model the direction. So let's say if you want your son or daughter to put on their shoes and they're not really attending to it, you put on your shoes. You can tell them, Mama shoes, Mama put on shoes. Okay, now your turn, you do. Again, we can also, like I said, model it, but we can also narrate. So what narrate is just describing what the child is doing. So let's say if they're pulling on your leg and you know they want up, just verbalize it like, oh, you want up? Okay, arms up. Okay, you got it. And then you pick them up. And those are just some ways. We'll give you some other ways in the course as well. And then our second area that we want our child to do at 12 months is we want them understanding action words or verbs. And how can you work on this? Well, you can absolutely do this by reading a book and pointing to what the different characters are doing. You can, let's say if you have an older child, you can highlight what their siblings are doing or another family member is doing. Or let's say if you're out in the community or you're at a park, point out to your child like, oh, there's a boy swinging, that boy is sliding, or that girl is digging. Talk about what the other kids are doing in a park or in the grocery store. You can use any type of situation and make it a learning experience. You can also utilize their toys. I'm sure at this age, they have a beautiful array of toys, so use it. So for example, let's say if you're playing with a doll or a stuffed animal, make them do different actions, make them jump, make them sleep, make them eat. And then also you can utilize your everyday routines. For example, let's say it's bath time and we're working on action words. And we might want to model that in the bath. Okay, for our body parts, there we go. For our body parts, we understand that parents are very, very busy. And therefore, we don't always have the time to work on certain things. So we encourage parents to use your normal routines to teach skills. So let's take, for example, the body parts. So we can use bath time. So for example, okay, we got to clean your hands. Give me your hands, or show me your belly. Where's your belly? We got to clean it. Or we can do, their hair, like, okay, we got to put some soap in our hair. You show me, et cetera, et cetera. We can also use diaper time. So once the situation is handled and things are in place, and let's say the kid is still lying on his back, get close to his or her face and have them point out your nose, your mouth, your ears. You can also work on body parts during dressing. So give me your hands. All right, we got to put our socks on our feet. And then again, you're talking about the body parts and you're talking about what to do with them. And I also love using meal times, and I understand that meal times could be very, very chaotic. But during meal times at the dinner table, you can talk about body parts, you can talk about actions and one-step commands. So like I said, the possibilities are very endless. All right. So as we move on to the next area, so that was receptive language, your child's ability to understand what's being spoken. So now we're going to move on to expressive language. This is how your child expresses themselves, and it could be done verbally or non-verbally. So what does this look like for a 12-month-old? Well, first off, we want them to be able to shake their heads no. If they verbalize it, even better. But again, shaking their heads no. We want them saying or imitating at least 1 to 2 simple words. If they have more, that's great. And depending on your household, we want them to use mama or dada meaningfully. So we want them to be identifying their parent. Okay, so how do we work on this? So I love working on no because a lot of times parents will come to us and say, "Well, why do we have to work on this?" Well, I often feel that we don't typically teach no so that it could be meaningful and impactful. So what happens at 12 months is they're starting to move around and explore their environment. Oftentimes around 12 months, they're walking. That means they're getting into a lot of trouble. So they're getting into things they shouldn't be getting into. They're touching things they shouldn't be touching. And because we want to protect our children, we often will say, no, 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 no touching. Nope, stop, no, no, no. So they're being bombarded with lots of no's. So what do you think happens next? They become a no monster. Everything to them is no, because that's all they're hearing. So no means no, no means yes, no means I want a cookie, and no means I want to go outside. So no means everything. So how do we work on that? Or how do we work on that to prevent that? Well, obviously we can model it, but what I like to do is I like to be very concrete. I like to be very black and white. So for example, let's say we're playing a game and I know that my child knows what a cow is, they know what a pig is, and they also know what a sheep is. So I'm going to pick up the cow, I'm going to point to it and say sheep, no. Pig, no. Cow, yes. Again, I'm going to use my body, I'm going to use my facial expression, I'm going to cue them with my voice. I am showing them physically, no is something different than yes, and I'm being very concrete because a cow can't be anything else. All right, so I'm over exaggerating. Again, I'm sustaining their attention as well. You can also play a searching game. So let's say hide a sibling or hide the other parent, and you could go look for them. So let's say the other sibling is hiding underneath the table and you go look for them and say, is he behind the door? No. Is he in the closet? No. Is he under the table? Yes. Again, very concrete, very black and white. All right. So how do we work on words? How do we get our kids to say words? So again, that is such a big area. We have so many different strategies. We're just giving you a little bit tonight. So we can absolutely do narration, which we talked about earlier. You're describing what the kid is doing. So let's say if they're playing with a ball, you can just point out to ball. Easy, right? Or we really love using songs and rhymes. And the reason why we like that is because they're very repetitive. If you think of the song like Wheels on the Bus, you have that same phrase over and over. And what you can do is you can try to get your kid to say "buh" for bus. So again, when you have that common phrase, you could get them to most likely say that last word. Or like Old MacDonald, that E-I-E-I-O part, see if they can say the O at the end. Again, they're hearing this over and over, so the chances of them saying it is definitely a lot higher. Or something what we call leading phrases. So let's say if you are rolling a ball back and forth, and you do that ready, set, go, and then you keep doing that over and over, your goal is to get your child to say go. Okay, not the whole phrase, just one word. Okay, so now let's talk about what not to do. So oftentimes we get parents coming in and they have every good intention, but they'll come in and say, well, they don't know their numbers and letters and colors or shapes. Hold off, hold on right there. So that's a lot. At this age, a child should not be knowing their numbers, letters, or colors, or shapes. Save that for later. At 12 months, that is not appropriate. If they're a little bit older, absolutely, but not for a 12-month-old, that's too much. Be aware of also performing or making your child perform. For example, let's say this, what's that? Who's this? Where's that? Too much, too many questions. They're little. We don't want to bombard them with so much language. If you're noticing, I'm not using a lot of language when I'm referring to a 12-month-old. I'm saying 1 or 2 word phrases. Too much. And again, we don't want to be quizzing them. We definitely do not want to be drilling them. That's not appropriate. At this age, a 12-month-old, their job is to play. That is how they're learning. They need to learn through interaction with people and their toys and their saying 1 or 2 words. We do want them to, again, be imitating, but again, 1 or 2 words. And also keep in mind, it's okay if they don't say the words correctly. If they do O for go or P for please, that's fine. We'll worry about articulation later. All right. And last, how do we work on Mama and Dada? Again, this will depend on your house and what the structure looks like. Again, we just want them to use a word for their parent, and we want them to use it meaningfully. So you can use it in a natural context. Like, let's say if your kid is getting up and they're in their crib, you can call for a parent. Or if you know they need your help, use Mama or Dada or something equivalent. You can do that little peekaboo. So maybe Dada's hiding behind the door and you go look for them. Or grab your kiddo, walk around the house and point out the people in the photos that you have. And of course, you can use your toy, Mama Bear, Baby Bear, Dada Bear, or whatever it is. All right. Okay. So next, in the course, we'll kind of go over some red flags. I'm not going to go over it today, but we just don't want to alarm you, but we also need you to be aware and alert. Because if you are noticing some red flags, like the ones listed here, on the next slide, you'll see we're going to help you with the next step. So if you're noticing something's off, what are your next steps? So obviously you can consult with your pediatrician, or you can obviously get their hearing tested if that's a concern, consult with the speech language pathologist, or of course, I know Jen had mentioned before, we offer services to help parents and to guide them. And you could, again, feel free to email us. We're happy to help you guys. All right, so I hope you enjoy this first little appetizer of course 1. You'll get the full entree in a couple weeks. I'm going to throw it back to Jen, who's going to talk about language development in the bilingual child.
Thanks, Marina. All right, our course 2 that you'll be getting the sneak peek is Achieving Communication Success with Your Bilingual Child. And in the next slide, you'll see some of the topics we'll be discussing in that full seminar. So we will be telling you a little bit about those differences between language development in the bilingual child versus the monolingual child. We'll be clearing some of those myths and giving you the true facts about bilingual language development and give you some real tangible ways to support your child be proficient in both languages. As we mentioned before, we're going to provide you with some activities, tips, and recommendations for helping your child be a confident public speaker. Like I mentioned, we really like focusing on that in the preteen years and do offer preteen classes through Vibrant. So if anyone has any interest or a little group of friends that are interested in preteen public speaking classes, they're a lot of fun. Just shoot us an email. We'll also be helping those children who learn that additional language after adolescence. As you know, there can be some differences in language development, whether you're exposed to that prior to adolescence or after, and we'll be giving you further information on how that can affect someone's pronunciation, and if there is some pronunciation challenges, what we can do to help with that. All right, so moving right along, let's get interacting a little bit. For this part of our course tonight, we're just going to give you a little fun quiz. So if you all could just put your answer in the chat, Kate will read them out. Let's read our first question. When working on a group project in a noisy classroom, bilingual children can zone in on a specific voice better than kids who are monolingual. So let's just I want to hear if people think that's true or false.
True. I have a true from Lydia. Oh, lots of true. Mary. Oh, lots of trues from Amanda. Seems to be the popular choice.
Awesome. You guys are right. It is true. Research has shown, as many of you probably know, that bilingual brains are actually more flexible. There actually is differences in the brain of bilingual versus monolingual children in the matter of the brain, which we'll be delving into in the full class. So children do have that unique ability to zone in on pertinent material and to leave out that extraneous, that irrelevant information, and just really focus their attention on the specific information they should be attending. So it is very beneficial to be a bilingual child, especially in today's world, right, where there's lots of chaos, and we really have to focus in on that pertinent information. Okay, let's move right along to our second true/false question. A person is not truly bilingual unless he or she is equally proficient in both languages. Put your answers in the chat and we'll have Kate give us the consensus.
False. Eric says false. Another false. Not sure. Giselle says false. False. Mary says false. Lots of false. Not sure. Yeah.
Okay, you guys are really good. That answer is false. Usually people have a dominant language. That dominant language throughout life can change. Some people are exposed to had their dominant language can be their parents, right? Original language in the home, but then the child goes to school and is watching TV and participating in activities, and that second language, it can actually become the dominant language. So it doesn't have to be that same language throughout the lifespan, but usually people have one that is more dominant. That still means though they can be proficient in both languages. All right, question 3 here. Let's see if we can at least trick you on one. My bilingual child has a smaller vocabulary than kids that are not.
Okay, so waiting on false, false, false. Marissa says false. Giselle says false. Bella says false. Lots of false.
Falses. Okay, this is actually a trick question. This is actually a true and false. So we are tricking you. So in a test of receptive vocabulary, that's where they looked at children who were bilingual. They looked at receptive vocabulary in English in this study and found that the monolingual children had a greater vocabulary in that one language. However, because those, in a bilingual child, the vocabulary is divided amongst 2, they have a greater vocabulary in that way. So it's kind of true and kind of false. It's to be expected, right? You're splitting your vocabulary among 2 languages. So that equals, I would say, more. All right, and our last one is, will my child retain my native language accent when speaking English, if that's their second language? Let's hear what you think in the chat.
Let's see. False. False. Mary says false. Rachel says false. Depending on the age, true and false. Depends on how old the child is that has the second language. False.
Okay, that answer was correct. It looks like we could not trick a few of you. It is both answers, just like you said, the age does matter. So we have that critical language learning age. So if children learn an additional language, it's typically before adolescence. They typically will not have an accent in that additional language. If it's after that critical language learning age, then usually you'll see the influence of that first language on sound production of the second language. All right. So like I said, we hope you tune into that full seminar. There's going to be lots of great information in there. Without further ado, I will pass it on to Marina to give us a sneak peek of Seminar 3, which, like I said, this is a great one. We all want peace and harmony, right, with our children. We don't want negative behaviors. So we're going to give you lots of communication strategies to foster positive behaviors in your child.
All right. So I actually love talking about behavior. It's one of my favorite areas. So I first want to start off by having us all paint a picture of a scenario. So let's imagine that it is Sunday morning and we have planned this beautiful brunch and we're getting ready and our company is coming in half hour and we realize we don't have milk. So we grab our kiddo, race to the store, throw our kiddo in the cart, we're running down that aisle. We can see the milk, it's right over there. And what we don't realize is the aisle that we're racing through happens to be the ice cream aisle. And guess who wants chocolate ice cream at 10 o'clock in the morning? Our kid does, and they want it right now. And they're not going to take no for an answer. What do you think is going to happen next? Full-blown meltdown, screaming, crying. Everyone's looking at us. And before you know it, you leave the store without getting the milk. I'm sure we can all relate. We've been in that type of situation out in public. Or let's take a more simpler scenario. Let's say we're just having lunch with our child and we just ask them if they want a banana, and all of a sudden tears, meltdown, they're grabbing at things, they're throwing things. Before we know it, we have a mini human tornado on our hands. And we don't even know why, because we just asked them if they wanted a banana. So if we all think about it, I'm sure we've all been in similar situations. What would you do in these situations? And how would that make you feel? I think it's safe to guess that it's pretty frustrating across the board. When your child is having some more troubling behaviors, parents are often at a loss as to what to do. Parents are frustrated when their child's frustrated. They're often overwhelmed. It's exhausting. And I feel like sometimes we get a little bit anxious about, when is the next outburst going to happen? We're constantly on edge. And then over time, if this continues to happen, the quality of life will decrease within the family, which we do not want. I think a lot of times we don't realize that behaviors often stem from poor communication skills. So either your child's inability to express themselves and their wants and needs, or for some reason, there's a lack of understanding of what is expected of them. I do also have to mention that, yes, a lot of it is stemmed from poor communication skills, but there are also other things, other issues that may be impacting communication. And we'll talk about that in the class. For example, like ADHD, something called sensory processing or autism. And we'll talk about that and how it impacts the child. So the goal of this class is to help you gain more confidence in managing more troubling behaviors. And how we do that is we'll talk about different scenarios, such as the ones we just discussed. We'll help you practice some strategies. We'll give you guidance. And then we'll help you distinguish between communication-based issues versus is it something else. We'll talk about feeding issues, picky eaters, and mealtime difficulties, because that is a huge thing that we see. We'll help you assess your family routines. And then we're not going to forget about the older kids, because they have behaviors too. It might not always be crying and shouting. I mean, sometimes it is. But again, we will not forget about them. And then we also will love to hear what works for you guys. So again, if there's something that is really valuable that you find that really works well, let's share it with each other. Let's build a supportive and safe environment within our group so that we can learn from each other. All right. So I'm just going to give you just a couple tools. So the first tool I want to give you is use signs, especially if your child, let's say, is around the age of 12 months or younger and they're not using words, or even if they're older and they're still not using words and they're just having trouble verbally expressing themselves, give them a means to communicate non-verbally. Signs are perfect. There's so much beautiful research on it. I just find that signing just overall helps reduce frustration because you're giving the child an outlet to communicate. Again, it might not be verbally, and that's okay. At least they're being acknowledged that, hey, I said something, I told you something, and you saw that I have thoughts in one. All right, so let's take a look at this photo. We'll talk about different signs, but these are the three basic signs. The eat sign is just your fingertips, just like that. And you're pointing to your mouth. Drink is a fist, and then more is your fingertips together. All right. All right, move on to the next tool. All right, I love this one. This is a really good one. So I love giving good directions. So what are good directions? Good directions are directions that focus on the positive. It focuses on what you want your child to do, the desired behavior versus what you don't want them to do. So let's take a look at this example. Okay, so instead of saying stop it, let's say your child is running. Instead of saying stop it, no running, stop running, try saying please walk. Walking feet, we only walk inside the house. Again, you are focusing on what you want them to do. All right, you're not talking about what you don't do. What ends up happening, the chances of them doing it again, the undesirable behavior. The next one. Next slide. All right, so we have a little bit of an interaction, little part of the course. We obviously, you've seen that we love having interactions with our with our participants. So now it's your turn. Here's a scenario. Your child is throwing toys and you want them to stop and clean up. What are some positive statements, some positive directions you can give to manage their behavior? Go ahead and stick in the chat if you don't mind shouting some of them out. Again, there are no wrong answers. We are all learning together. So I hope you feel comfortable enough to do that. All right.
It is time to clean up. Let's clean up. Leah.
Yep, all good, all good. So we're going to show you a little bit of some of the stuff that I came up with. Again, great job. Focus on the behavior. Very simple. You guys are great.
Oh, Marina, let us do a game. Who could clean up the fastest?
I love that.
Great
It
one.
always works. It always works. All right, Kate, if you don't mind showing some of the
Sure.
row. Okay, toys go in the basket. Again, everything you guys had mentioned is perfect. It's cleanup time. Show me how well you can clean up. I love the competition because I kid you not, it works 100%. I like how you're putting away your toys. When they start doing it, compliment them. When you reinforce a good behavior, the chances of that behavior repeating happens again. All right, moving on. Oh, I like that one. I know you are a great helper to clean up. Very good. Awesome. Very good. Okay. Another tool that I like to do is give choices with directions, or just giving choices in general. So why is that important? So, well, obviously it gives the child a sense of control while the parent still has control. So you guys are co-controllers. This will decrease the power struggle so that you guys are not fighting over whatever it is you guys are disagreeing about. But also, when you give choices to a child, you're showing them that they can be independent thinkers, that, hey, you can make your choices for yourself. You don't have to be dependent, even though they kind of are at this age if they're younger. But this is critical, especially if they feel confident about how they make choices. This will impact them later. Again, you're building the foundations of their communication behaviors early on so that you set them up for success later on. All right, so let's look at this example. Instead of saying, eat your apple, if you just say to your child, eat your apple, chances are they're gonna say no. So, or you at least are giving them the option of saying no, which we don't want, because let's say you want them to eat fruit and they're not really eating fruit. Okay, eat your apple, they can say no, or they could just ignore you. But if you give them choices, all right, it's time to eat fruit. You can have an apple or a pear. What would you like? You're not really giving the option of that yes, no there. You're just giving those two options of the fruit. All right. So we're going to practice this in the next slide. All right, so your turn. This is a common problem. I'm sure some of you guys have faced this. Your child is having a tantrum because he or she wants to play with the iPad. However, it's dinner time. What choices can you give them? All right, stick that into the chat. This one might be a little bit more trickier. It's okay if this one.
First dinner, then iPad. Great idea.
Yep.
Anybody else?
This one's a little bit more trickier. So we'll kind of show you what I came up with. Again, okay, again, these are just some choices. So you can say it's time for dinner. You can play with an iPad. Oh, quiet time for dinner.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bella. It is time for dinner. You can play with an iPad after dinner or read a book. You can do it after. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Marcia said, let's do dinner and talk about what you learned. Perfect. All right. Okay. Another thing I came up with an idea of what you can say is, it's dinner time. You can help me set the table or bring the food to the table. Give them a task. And then for our last example, you can acknowledge that, let's say if they're upset, you can acknowledge it. I see that you're upset, that the iPad time is over. You can get a drink of water or take a short walk to calm down and get ready for dinner. Giving them options for ways to calm down could be another strategy you can do. All right. Again, to reiterate what this course covers, obviously we'll go through different scenarios, we'll teach you some strategies and give you some resources as well to help manage some challenging behaviors. We'll show you how to read cues and anticipate any challenging behaviors. Again, we'll talk about the difficulties with meal times because that's very important. We'll talk about transitions. So it's often not the task that's difficult for the child. It's the moving away from their preferred or familiar task to something that may be novel or something that's unfamiliar or not preferred. It's that movement away. We'll work through tantrums, and then we'll talk about overstimulation within the child or difficulties with self-regulation and what that looks like and what that is. And we'll do a lot more. And then I'm going to pass it over to Jen, who's going to conclude our session for today.
Thank you. Well, I'm just concluding our session. If you have any questions you want to put in the chat, we will be sticking around for a Q&A afterwards, and we'd be happy to answer further questions. I know once I'm done here, Chris, there was a question in the chat just about how people sign up for these seminars. So maybe you could share that at the end.
I will. So for right now, I will introduce the 3 courses, even include the time and the price and how to do the register. That I will figure out. I will teach everyone to do that, and then you can come back and maybe like 5 minutes, and you can come back, answer the question in the chat box, so the parents can like ask a question from directly from you guys, and we can even like ask the parents just open the mic and just directly talk to you guys. That's more like a convenience and more directly have interact with them. Yeah. Wonderful. So right now I'm gonna share my screen. Yeah.
Okay.
So as everyone knows, the Jennifer and the Kate and Marina they already introduced the course. Like they already gave everyone like a sneak peek of the course. So tonight's course is on WasteWise, and the courses include 3 different 2-hour session. Each session is 1.5 hour lecture and 30 minutes Q&A session. And this course is for adults, right? It's for the parents, right? Yeah,
correct.
This course is for parents to help their kids, help their children to do the language skills, to master the speech, and to achieve communication skills, and even the positive behavior, like from 3 different angles to help the parents to manage the kids. And the original price is $399, but today everyone in the seminar can get like $349. And I will also copy the link into the chat box if parents want to sign in right now. You can go and sign in, and also you can talk to our assistants or join in another WeChat group. Like we're gonna bring you to the WeChat group, and tomorrow we're gonna send out the video replay, and also we will send out more course information into the groups, like so, and also emails. Tonight you register the email, and tomorrow we're gonna send through the emails to you too. So yeah, and I think my part is kind of done. So right now you guys can answer the parents' question a little bit, and if they have any issue related to how to register, how to do the course, I can answer that part. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And thanks again for everyone for taking time out of your evening to listen to our information. You were so wonderful and interactive. And it was great to see that people were joining us from all over the United States and Canada. So without further ado, I'll have Kate kind of if anyone has any questions or wants to write one in the chat, feel free to do so, or you could just join in and say it aloud. If it's something you're not comfortable sharing with the group, please do not hesitate to email us at info@vibrance.com. We'll be happy to return your email just, within a few days.
Yes, I've gotten a lot of questions, such good questions too. One of them was the age range of our classes. And if you heard in our presentation, we'll be discussing communication throughout your child's lifespan. So from birth all the way up to their high school, college years. So it will cover most of your child's lifespan. So that was a really great question. A lot of questions I think Chris answered that, is it a class for children or adults? It's for adults that to help your child become a proficient and successful communicator. Okay, let's see. Any other questions that I've missed? Do you plan to have, June says, do you plan to have any sessions for the elementary school aged child? If you mean just for children, right now, we just have the courses that we described to you today for the parents. If you email us, we do provide services for children in the area of pronunciation training. We do public speaking for children and teens too. But right now our classes are for the parents.
If anyone is looking, we are in the process, I should say, of scheduling our summer group public speaking classes. So if you have a preteen, especially preteen or young teen who is interested in those small group remote sessions, we are in the process of setting them up for the summer. Just shoot us an email and we'll make sure to give you some information.
Oh, and I saw Leah was raising the hand, and I will ask you on mute. Hi, Leah.
Hi, thanks, Chris, and thanks, everyone. It was a great session. So my daughter is 10 years old, and she is on the spectrum. She's high functioning, and she also has anxiety and ADHD. Now, so she's gone through some speech therapy, so it's been helpful. But what she's struggling with is that she has trouble writing, coming up with ideas. Every time you ask her to write something, giving her a topic, she's kind of like just completely frozen. So I don't know if you have any quick strategies to point us to. It seems to me that she has a hard time coming up with ideas and to verbalize her ideas. And I basically have to guide her little by little. Then she ends up kind of copying my language as opposed to coming up with her own. I'd love to get your thoughts.
Yes. So we often see sometimes, a lot of times, kids on the spectrum or who are a little bit older, who have trouble coming up with initiating, right? That initiation of the thought of, you had mentioned kind of writing stories or starting that conversation. That initiation, sometimes it's such a big task. Again, we could kind of go on and on for hours about this, but one thing actually I'm working on it right now with some of my clients is we try to pick a topic that is very familiar, something preferred, and then we start branching out to something that is not familiar. Is that making sense?
Yeah, sure. So you want her to feel the comfort to talk
because about. we don't really want them, or we don't want to set them up for failure, because sometimes, for example, like even asking some of my kiddos on my caseload, how is your day today? Big question. And it's too much for them to kind of process and to kind of get everything out in sequence. Oftentimes they have trouble with what we call executive function. So being able to sequence your thoughts and your actions, things like that. And sometimes the memory is, something that we have to work on as well. But if we kind of narrow the topic, try to do a preferred topic so they know a lot about it and they can talk a little bit easier. Try that. It's a little bit tricky because there's so many different strategies that we can use, but that would be something that I would maybe start off with. I don't know, Kate and Jen, if you have anything else to add to that.
No, I like that. I like using, some familiar, just visual cues. Yeah. If it's about like a preferred activity and you have pictures of it on your phone, using some pictures of your child doing that activity, or if it's writing about a vacation they enjoyed or a place they like to go, just showing, maybe some of the pictures with the child in it helps too. And then I love how Marina said, then building out from there, building from that familiar preferred topic outward.
I actually just thought of one more idea. I sometimes will use YouTube and we'll watch a short video. Again, I know the goal is to have a conversation or to write a story, but if you zero in on a short little video. It's visual, and you ask them to summarize it. Again, you need to start small. Think of the smaller steps to go to the bigger steps. All right, so that could be a way to kind of work on it, again, to help with the confidence, and so that she feels like she can do it, you know. So we don't want to start all the way up here, start a little bit down here. I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, thank you. That's very helpful. Just curious, quick follow-up. Have you worked with kids that have sort of grown up and gained more confidence as they go to college and they're able to write their own essays, or is it always going to require some kind of scaffolding?
It all depends, because every child is different, but we've seen so much great success with our kiddos. They're, again, it's a lot on how motivated they are as well. A lot of times they do go on to college and they do really well. Sometimes they need a little assistance, but for the most part, you know, we want them, our goal is to get them to be as independent as possible. So yeah, we do see, I have some kiddos that have been with me for a long time and now they're adults and they check in with me all the time, and they're, you know, in college and they're getting jobs now. So it's really kind of nice to see that.
Awesome, thanks.
Yeah, back to you.
I think we had another good question in the chat about other ways to enhance your child's communication besides reading, which was an interesting one. For me, I always like doing like a how-to task. So that could be a cooking task with your child, you know, if that's something that you enjoy, or making a project together. So many of those language skills you can work on when you're doing a task together, working on following directions, working on answering questions, working on vocabulary within that cooking activity, working on telling about what you're doing. So I love doing just those little projects together with your kids. I mean, it could be something as easy as just making a homemade pizza with them and giving them directions, having them label what they're putting on the pizza, talking about time concepts, such as how long to put it in the oven, or size concepts, big and small, how the food feels. So I love that as a way to work on speech and language with your young child, or middle, or a little older child too.
And we'll give you lots of ideas in our classes too, especially our first course. We'll kind of show you some toys or some activities, and okay, what can you target with this? We'll kind of go through that too. But I also love cooking. I do a lot of the cooking as well with my kiddos, and it's so much fun.
Okay, so next one. So you finished the chat box question, right? Yeah, I think so. So next one, Lane. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. You can unmute yourself. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a son, 18 years old, on the spectrum. He is verbal, however, his speech is kind of like robotic. How do I work on, I guess, work on smoothness? Or how do I teach? How do I work on fluency, or how to teach him speak smoothly, not monotonous? You know what I mean?
Good. Go ahead, Maureen.
So there's different there's different methods we could do. It's a little bit tricky because you have to know a little bit about the voice and the speech. That I would highly suggest first, obviously, consulting with speech therapists, but there's different. I know someone had mentioned, was it you? I believe it was you who mentioned the tapping. That's not really something that I like to do. We try to work on intonation, meaning like your pitch. You know, we first want to make sure that their voice is healthy. That I think would be step number one, making sure that they can change their pitch so that they don't sound robotic. Because when you sound robotic, what happens is your voice sounds flat and you're not really moving up and down. Like, think of kind of like waves, especially people here in America, we have very big ups and downs that make our sentences sound a little bit more natural. So first, we kind of want to distinguish to make sure that their physiology and their voice is okay. And then we start working on playing around with their pitch. It could be even like sometimes imitating some songs you can do. Sometimes with my kiddos who are on the spectrum, who are a little bit more monotone, we work on asking questions, for example, like yes, no questions, your voice goes up. Like, do you want to play? Your voice goes up. Or if you ask a WH question, your voice goes down. What time is it? We work on those little subtle pitch differences in sentences, and then we we'll incorporate into a conversation. But again, start small. Those would be some of my tips. Sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, and next one, AA. You can unmute yourself.
Hello, hi. Thanks for all the information. My daughter is 10 years old, grade 5, and she do dancing and everything, all the activities, no problem. But she really had challenge to making friends at school. Most of the researching time, she was just like sitting by herself to draw the pictures and everything. She doesn't have any challenge to making friends in her after-school programs, but in the public school settings, she really had challenge to making friends with other girls like that. So, but she did had some language difficulties during her younger ages, which we find the therapist and everything. And she's improving, but still she had a very hard time to making friends at school. Thank you.
Yeah, I would, have you brought the attention to the school, to the teacher at school?
Indeed.
Okay, because I would like to see like a social worker taking maybe some observation of what's going on in the classroom at recess, maybe even taking her aside at a later time, you know, privately suggesting maybe there's a person in the class that they said, oh, they would be a good match. That person's very kind if people ask to be friends, seeing if that professional can help bring her together, and not by doing it themselves, but by coaching her through it, you know, finding a common. I know it's easier in those after school activities when you have a commonality with someone. It's harder when you're not finding a commonality. If that's it, do you feel like she's not confident in the school setting and she's more confident at those, like her after school activities?
So it's kind of because after school is dancing club, and she's feel comfortable with that setting. And in the schools, she still has some language barriers, try to like express herself to talking to other kids efficiently. And then, you know, if you couldn't present your ideas efficiently over time, the kids might lose interest to listen to her or something, which makes her nervous,
and she pulls away. Yeah.
Yes, and try to please the other kids, and which doesn't work well. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I would definitely seek out if there was a social worker that could assist at school and really observe and give her some of those concrete examples of things she could do right in her class.
Yes, indeed. I mean, because in the school settings, I couldn't do the observations. I probably do need help from the, school resources.
Definitely.
Okay.
Can
Thank
I add something too? You can also have a speech therapist observe too, just in case if there is more like what we call pragmatic difficulties, like knowing how to initiate a conversation. It sounds like it might be a little bit more anxiousness, possibly, but also the speech therapist could give you some ideas of, or at least your daughter some ideas of how to start a conversation, how to carry a conversation. So again, you can start a conversation, but can maintain it. And this is how we do it. We actually practice this a lot with some of my kiddos. Again, I love the commonality thing too. But yeah, that's what I would just also suggest to social work and the speech therapist.
Could you please type that word you mentioned in the chat? So I will do some research on that one.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your help. Yeah.
All right, Chris, are there any more questions, or we have to see?
I think if any parents have a question for tonight, I think just open your mic. You can just directly ask our teachers, professors, and if doesn't have, we can probably like end 10:20. We can give us 3 more minutes. Yeah.
I have a question. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi. My 11-year-old son, who's on the spectrum, high functioning, and has ADHD. So he has trouble expressing or both on his receptive and expressive language when he's distracted. So when I take him for speech evaluation, he acts just fine. And because he's in a small room, there's no distraction and he's paying full attention. But you know, in reality, that's not how people communicate. There's always constant distraction around, and he doesn't communicate properly. And the teacher, school, in a school setting, the teachers notice that too. But I just have trouble to talk to the speech therapist to create that situation to show his true communication skills. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Definitely. Yeah. I would love to see in this case, so is your child receiving, like in school, a pull-out method where your child goes to a room for the services for therapy?
So he's on IEP, but for other executive function dysfunctions. I'm using my private insurance to get him speech therapy, but it's not really working the way that address his deficit. Because it's just not in, like, I'm hoping that the therapy could be in a community setting.
That's what I was thinking. I was going to suggest to try to research in your area if there were programs that did group sessions together. So instead of an individual session in a small group, I know some places have cooking classes for children with, autism or anxiety or ADHD, or other Lego building classes or group projects, something in a group that where there would be more distraction and they were busier actually doing something.
Yes.
Would probably be more beneficial at this time for your goals for your child than the individual one-on-one, or having that one-on-one prep your child for that upcoming group situation and then doing that situation with them.
Yes, because he has high IQ, so he can fake the things that, like, he knows the right answer for the questions.
Right.
If he knows he's being watched or tested. But when he's engaged with something and get really hypered, then he lost,
he's not showing those skills, right?
Yes.
Yes, I understand.
Sounds weird, but yeah.
No.
Okay.
Definitely, the kids can look very different in different settings. I mean, that happens. That is not uncommon where, you're like, oh, your child did great. They were perfect. What are you talking about? And then you see them in a different setting and it's like a totally different person. So that is definitely understandable. But it sounds like, maybe doing some things like you said out in the community and in groups would be beneficial.
Yeah, the thing is insurance doesn't cover. Like, you have to find your own therapist to go with them. Otherwise, the insurance wouldn't.
Yeah, definitely. Insurance is definitely one of our challenges we have to work with. Is there any services like that in school where they could work on any of those goals? No, not in their school.
No, not really.
Yeah. It's tough.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
I think, I think Xu Chen, hi.
I do have a question, please,
Yeah.
if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, yeah.
Okay, great. I have a student who likes to self-talk, and I was wondering if I should stop him or just let him talking. Because he's just coming, burp out questions or comments, what he had seen or had said, or somebody else has said in the school. Do you have any suggestions?
So just to clarify a little bit more, are you saying that your child is just repeating what people are saying to him and not coming up with his original thought?
Just self-talk. I'm a private, like a volunteer. I have a group of students working, on the project. So while I was teaching them, they have, he has that kind of behaviors. I was wondering, should I just, let it go, or should I stop him, or should I question, So any suggestions?
Could you give us a little bit more context?
Okay, like he will say, time to pick up bowling ball, and time to go to store, something like that.
Okay, so he's kind of verbalizing, okay, it's time to go home, or it's time to get is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Kind of like that.
And how old is your son?
15.
15, okay. If you don't mind me asking, does he have a diagnosis or is he?
Yes, he does.
Okay, so it could be, and ladies, feel free to jump in. Sometimes I feel that kids who to kind of organize themselves, sometimes they'll do some of the self-talk that we see. Again, it's almost an anticipation of what's coming next, and almost a little bit of a self-reminder. Sometimes we see that. One suggestion that you could do is, again, this is a little bit more work. You can, for example, like if you know he's going to map out his day verbally, you can have a visual schedule. I know now they have apps that, let's just take, for example, he's now saying like, he's mapping out his day. It's time for me to go to school. I have to go to math class. Just take that example. An app, and I could find it for you. I just can't remember the name off the top of my head, where you can have a visual schedule on the phone and kind of see, like, again, see if that would decrease some of that verbalization. I don't know necessarily if it's a negative thing, because I wonder if he just needs to verbalize like his routine to kind of almost like get himself ready. So again, a little bit more visual. Does that make sense?
Kind of, because I do have, I'm like a private teacher, volunteer private teacher. So I am just to help them to have a routine. I'm trying to teach them to make a schedule every day, when I have a class. But anyway, it's just this kind of, situation. I do not know if I should stop him or should I just, work with him, something like that,
Yeah. So, ladies, I don't know if you have any other ideas. Another idea. Oh, go ahead.
I would say do you feel like it's disruptive to those around him or not?
Kind of.
It kind of is. Yeah. For me, I feel like if he said it one time, like time to go, here, one time done. But if it was repetitive, where he was saying that same line, like you can say it one time and then we're all done talking about that, because it might just be like Marina saying, that preparation, it might help with some anxiety, or if there's nervousness about what that next step. I think the one time is fine. Beyond that, I think then there should be cues. Then just one time, we're all done talking about that now.
And eventually, if that ends up working too, Jen, I was actually just going to say being limited to one. Eventually, over time, if that works, then you can start having that discussion. Okay, there's things that we say out loud and there's things that we say in our head. And you could kind of shift over to that. But first, start small. Start doing it by just limiting it to one repetition.
Okay.
Yeah. And you could probably even look up, I'm sure online, if you look up social stories, there might be a social story about children who are, repeating the same thing over and over, or that line, or like Marina said, about what we say out loud and what we keep to ourselves. If you just Google it, social story, and put in some of those keywords, there's a bunch of things already out there that are made that maybe reading about it with like a picture type story would help.
Great ideas. Thank you so much. Very beneficial.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think it's probably, yeah, I think probably it's good to end tonight. And thank you, everyone, and attended this evening. And I thank you, our 3 beautiful teacher, and thank you very much. So we probably, we probably end it tonight. And I will keep updating the course information and into the group talk, into the WeChat group talk. And I will keep doing. Thank you, everyone. Yeah.
Thank you so much for having
It
us.
was so much
Thank
fun.
you.
Thank you so
Bye,
much,
good night.
everybody.
Have a good night.
Have a great night.
Recording stopped.